Story 1. How much hope for the future I had as a Generation X kid, despite the cynicism ingrained in our generation. In the 1980s, we took acid rain and the hole in the ozone layer seriously. Now we cannot even agree on whether climate change is real or whether vaccines for diseases like measles and mumps are important. More importantly, we took serious people seriously. Now everything feels like a strange, twisted joke. Story 2. Working long hours and still worrying about how you will afford to buy a house in the future. Story 3. World peace is never going to be a reality. Humanity is not inherently good and willing to get along. Story 4. I feel incredibly lonely. There is nobody around, and there never really has been. I can cope, but occasionally it hits me and I cry. Story 5. That Trump was elected again is systematically destroying America, as it no longer holds the morals or values it once stood for. France, please take back the Statue of Liberty. It no longer has meaning here, as the racists have won and want to make America only white. Story 6. The bleakness of it all. When you're a child, there's always that notion of figuring things out as an adult, wanting to do better, make the world a better place, and have agency. But now that I'm actually an adult, things are not so different. There's no, the next phase will be better. This is the prime of our lives, and we're straddling an abysmal economy while society is at its worst. People are so mean. We've become desensitized to so much, and the news cycle seems designed to drain hope. There was much more hope as a kid. I can't be naive anymore because you start to see firsthand how the world works. You can do everything right, but there are factors that can't be helped because a small but powerful group of people dictate so. Story 7. Seeing parents glued to their phones while their young children receive little to no care or attention. Story 8. Losing friends is a common experience. People move away, get busy with work, or limit their social circles when they get married or have children. Story 9. Thinking about when I was a child and couldn't wait to grow up, I now realize that if I could have it all back, I would. The passage of time is bittersweet. Story 10. People are trying to obtain free lunches from school. I didn't even know as a child that I was receiving free lunches through a program. I just assumed it was free. I cannot imagine a good argument against this. If we are going to legally require children to be in school, then meals provided at school should be free. I will never complain about my taxes funding that. Story 11. I will never get to go to my grandparents' house for Christmas ever again. That realization hit me like a ton of bricks years later after they had passed and their house was sold. Story 12. My time on this earth is becoming limited, and I may miss out on some of the most wonderful moments in my children's lives. It breaks me. Story 13. I'm realizing how many of my former friends would have betrayed Frank during World War II. Being a bisexual woman with autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in a conservative area has definitely had its struggles. Now it's outright terrifying since my oldest daughter came out as a lesbian. I keep seeing hate-fueled posts openly discussing and supporting the stripping of my daughter and me of our basic rights because their idol states so. When I mention that these policies would harm my family, it's met with, "We will agree to disagree." No, we will simply agree to part ways. Story 14. The poor mentally ill face limited opportunities to live happily and securely. Additionally, there are unkind and selfish individuals who cause pain to others. Story 15. Realizing that most of the people I believed cared about me as a child, who were not related to me, clearly did not care as much as I had thought. Story 16. Realizing how difficult my parents truly were and that they are no longer in my life because of the poor decisions they made is challenging. It can be painful to see other people's parents being so supportive and genuinely proud of their children. Some days I wish my parents could have been better individuals so that I could have experienced that as well, especially as I get older. Story 17. Realizing how much of my childhood was spent wanting to grow up, and now all I want is a break from being an adult. Story 18. You can enjoy children's shows, toys, and other kids' things without being judged. You're expected to like alcohol, parties, and sex as a way to enjoy yourself. Story 19. Making friends can be challenging, especially if you face difficulties in your younger years. I struggled for years with mental illness until I was 32 and finally received the correct diagnosis. Those years could have been spent focusing on recovery. Story 20. Seeing people who clearly don't want or shouldn't have children have them, or partner with someone who has children, is usually a recipe for disaster for everyone involved. Story 21. One of my cats is overweight and needs to go on a diet. I dislike that the poor animal has to be hungry often, but I would also dislike for him to develop diabetes or something similar. Story 22. As a child, it was so innocent. It is not so innocent now. The world is filled with people who have evil intentions. Story 23. Realizing how incredibly selfish and inhumane people can be, even those you were close to and saw the best in, has shattered my once naive and trusting view of the world and my perception of humanity. Connected to this is the way people treat connections and relationships. Realizing that many view others as disposable makes me sick. Society has become very self-centered. Story 24. Watching one of my best friends go through her father's decline in health has been difficult. I believe he passed away yesterday, but I haven't reached out yet because I know how hard it has been for her. I honestly can't imagine what it is like to lose a parent when you have a good, healthy relationship with them. Story 25. I worry about the future of my children. I am optimistic, but one can never know what might happen. They are smart, healthy kids, but many factors are changing in the world. Story 26. The fact that someone has the capability to hit, pinch, push, or drag is concerning, especially for a child. My friend, the person doesn't even know what 2 plus 2 is. Why do you have an issue with him? Story 27. I feel frustrated by how much effort I have put into my progress and the time I have sacrificed, yet I remain in the same situation due to the challenges posed by the economy and the world in general. Story 28. We need to recognize that we often deprive ourselves of certain things because they are not priorities in life, but rather personal preferences. For instance, enjoying a soft drink can be costly and is not always attainable. Similarly, going to pleasant places may seem unattainable due to work obligations. These seemingly trivial aspects impact people's quality of life, and the privileges associated with them can be deeply upsetting. Story 29. The realization that the life I want to have with my partner, the life previous generations experienced, will be denied to us because of the deterioration of morals in favor of monetary gains and capitalistic greed is disheartening. Modern existence in a superficial world of consumerism reveals that we once believed we were the consumers, but it is clear that we are actually the consumed. Story 30. The large number of people from my generation who act like their clubbing days didn't end around the time Obama was first elected. Story 31. Hardly anyone cares about animals and the amount of animal abuse circulated on social media. It has become acceptable to abuse animals in the name of cuteness, and many people defend this abuse with their lives because they find it appealing. Toxic positivity is another issue. Not everything has to be great. People should not run away from bad days or hide the negative aspects of life. Story 32. Being lonely, not knowing what to do with my life, feeling unloved or uncared for, and worrying about the future, such as the fear of losing my job and becoming even lonelier without colleagues to interact with, and the fear of becoming so ill that I won't be able to perform everyday tasks, are constant struggles. Story 33. Knowing there are children at my son's school who are experiencing the same cycles of poverty and abuse that children faced when I was in school concerns me. When I was young, those in difficult situations appeared troubled and struggled academically. Now I understand they were enduring a challenging childhood, just like the children today. Story 34. The whole realization concept is such that I can no longer look at something and simply feel happy. Instead, I begin to consider the consequences. Story 35. I have more years behind me than ahead. I'm 47. My parents have both passed away. I never found love to create my own family, but I'm still grateful for my life. Story 36. Now that I have a child, any documentary or news story involving a child being hurt or abused is incredibly upsetting. Children are so innocent, full of love and curiosity, and it's terrible to see people taking advantage of them. I struggle to find the words to express just how distressing this is. Story 37. The many regrets of my past, my parents getting older, my dog getting older, knowing I will never have the dream home and life I want. All the shows I love have just ended or are ending this year, and knowing there are so many animals around the world that have never been shown kindness and love. Story 38. When people I care about and have shared time or a connection with do not treat me with respect, it hurts and surprises me every time since it takes a lot to trust and open up. Story 39. The decline of the modern world includes issues such as child abuse, animal abuse, and the current state of politics, highlighting the loss of common sense. Story 40. Where do I start? Kids prefer screens over outdoor time. The bullying I see happening in schools is exacerbated by screens, affecting both children and adults. Social media contributes significantly to this issue. There are rising living costs, and many struggle to maintain a comfortable, not lavish life due to being underpaid and overworked. Additionally, some adults display entitlement. I could list many issues, but I try to stay in my own world to avoid how depressing things can be. As a mother, the bullying issue particularly affects me because my own children have dealt with it. Story 41. The state of the world and the knowledge that my children and future grandchildren are likely to have a much worse life than I have had. Story 42. Hypernormalization and its successes. The consequences of Wall Street's self-regulatory regime's purposeful choice not to curtail failures to deliver or punish those responsible, and instead help them hide the mass organized fraud that has stolen from the pensions of 2, going on 3 generations of Americans, have disrupted the invisible hand of capital allocation. As a result, the relative prices of everything are mismatched, leading to an increasing number of people having to live in their cars. Reddit headquarters' collusion in this matter involves purposefully limiting the dissemination of knowledge about it, accidentally upsetting others, inability to sleep properly, eye blisters, aging in general but especially painful knees, back, and teeth, the continued existence of progressive rock music. Story 43. How adults hurt children and the elderly is something I can never understand. It always makes me sad when adults inflict harm on them. Story 44. I have come to the conclusion that people have become mere faces who will eventually come and go in my life. Story 45. I think about all the friends I've lost and the ones who have ghosted me, especially one in particular whom I miss so much. It has been about 15 years, and I have not found anyone close since then. Adulting can be very challenging. Story 46. Everything happening in this world, such as the oppression of the poor by the wealthy, war, slavery, and poverty, is distressing. I dislike what is occurring right now. It is affecting me deeply. Story 47. Aging parents. They were wonderful parents, and it is difficult to watch the essence of who they are slowly fade away. Story 48. Seeing people kill each other because of slight differences is troubling, and it raises the question of why some still consider this acceptable. Story 49. Watching my parents grow old and pass away makes me wish I could go before them. I do not know how I will live without them. Story 50. Bills and debt, trying to fit in the things I enjoy doing in such little time, working at a job that isn't spiritually rewarding, my loved ones being sick and me being unable to help, knowing I have children in a world filled with many harmful individuals, the healthcare system being rigged, the quality of food being poor, and overthinking. Story 51. The friendships and relationships I had to let go. People are no longer the same as I get older. The life I had, with parents getting older and neighborhoods changing, siblings moving out, the stamina and enthusiasm I once had. I'm feeling jaded, tired, and indifferent. How did I end up like this? I am losing interest in most things. I used to love science, movies, sports, and making friends. The world feels colder now, more sensitive. Movies are disappointing, and consumerism and materialism are everywhere. Story 52. Prices of everything, the world in general, awful tragedies you hear about every day, and people being cruel to pets and children. Story 53. Seeing people, myself included, forget how to just relax and have fun, be silly. We are so weighed down by life that many of us forget that being playful or having a little fun is important. Story 54. Understanding that the problems do not get solved quickly at all. I thought there would not be more children addicted to drugs by now. I was mistaken. I believed that discrimination against the LGBTQ+ community would decrease, but it increased. Story 55. It makes me sad that this world is so beautiful and humans are capable of great things, yet we allow very foolish or malicious individuals to exist because of morality. It feels like a waste of our time in this reality to hold ourselves back just for the sake of morality. Story 56. The number of adults who do not care about the world or society around them is concerning. Story 57. The time I wasted stubbornly holding on to unhealthy and destructive relationships and jobs because of pride, thinking, I made a commitment, and I am not a quitter. Story 58. When I receive my paycheck, it is quickly consumed by all my bills, making it feel as though I am just working to meet basic needs, despite earning 45% more than the average annual income in Canada. The cost of living here is quite high. Story 59. What doesn't? The planet is in turmoil, my country is struggling, healthcare is failing, the economy is unstable, my body is unwell, my mind is troubled, my marriage is challenging, my children dislike me, finances are complicated, my house is disorganized, and my past relationships are difficult. I'm always tired, frustrated, and feeling unwell. I do have my job and my dog, though. They are pretty great. Story 60. I'm 18, which is an adult in my country, but knowing my time is limited makes me work through all of my good years, and it sometimes gets me a little depressed. Story 61. Bullying. Realizing that they didn't like me. Being taken advantage of. How corrupt the world truly is. Losing animals. Story 62. Watching society slide downhill. It was supposed to get better. In my 68 years, the 1970s were the only time I remember minimal turmoil. Story 63. I find it bothersome that many people lack self-awareness. For example, they might be on a hike but focus solely on taking pictures for social media instead of enjoying their surroundings. Story 64. Work, the cost of living, and the fact that as a millennial, I likely won't be able to retire comfortably. The people and pets I have lost along the way. Story 65. When I take the last sip of my coffee without realizing it, I go back for another sip, only to feel sadness. Story 66. I'm in my 30s and finding a job that doesn't require me to spend half of my monthly income on health insurance, even for plans with a high deductible and copay. Story 67. When I discover that events I thought occurred about 5 years ago actually took place 11 years ago, such as Robin Williams' death, it surprises me. Story 68. Toxic individuals who are unwilling to change often experience personal growth as they age. They learn and draw closer to God, making an effort to become better people for the sake of their families. However, those who truly change are few. Story 69. I became a graveyard of everyone and everything I loved. I came across these words and couldn't agree more, sadly. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.